Hi, everybody. Happy Saturday. I'm Graham Nolan and back Alien Alamo. Why should you back it? Because it's not work for hire, which is the topic we're going to talk about today. Work for hire, how that got started, what its intent was, and how it impacts creators to this day. And the reason that this is coming to the forefront is it's something that hasn't really been challenged in court. Because publishers don't really want it challenged, for one thing, and we'll go into that. But this article from the Hollywood Reporter appeared the other day, and it's probably very eye-opening to a lot of people. But if you're in the business, this is stuff that we've known about, and it's just starting to come to light, and really needs to be talked about, needs to be aired out. There's a lot of money out there right now, a lot of money being made by these huge conglomerates, these corporations that have gobbled up the publishing industry and stuff. And yet the creators who create all the stuff are getting zippo, very, very little crumbs, if you will, off these billion-dollar industries. And a lot of that is predicated on a copyright law that's called work for hire. The way that works today, well, let's first, I guess, talk about what it was designed for. Work for hire was supposed to be a way for companies to own ideas, technology, product that's designed or created by their employees. So, for example, if you worked for Microsoft and you came up with a brand new operating system, you may have the credit for creating that operating system, but the copyright is owned by Microsoft. If you own any Adobe products, you'll see credits across as soon as Photoshop opens up, all these credits of designers and stuff, and credits nice. But Adobe owns it because these people are employees of Adobe. And as such, they are granted all the rights, privileges, and remuneration that employees get. So they get a salary, they get vacation, they get benefits, they have their taxes taken out, all that stuff. And in return, you know this going in, that you work for this company, you design stuff, and the company is the owner of it. And that seems fair, because you are benefiting from the company as well. The company's successful, you're successful, and you get all the benefits as a full employee, retirement, all of that. Well, somewhere along the line, somebody figured out that if we hire independent contractors or freelancers, we can get the same deal. We can own the stuff that they create, but now we don't have to pay them overtime or a salary. We don't have to pay health benefits or vacation, because we will use them under this work for hire umbrella. And that's what happened. And that has been the way it's been in comics forever. That it's always been independent contractors. There's been a couple times, a couple experiments where CrossGen was an example where they actually hired people as employees. Also, they had percentages of royalties that everybody benefited from. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for that company. But that's not to say that it wasn't a great idea or the right thing to do. Because what's happening now is that creators who have created these characters that at one time were making, lots of money for these companies, but now they're making obscene amounts of money for these companies. That because they were done under the auspices of work for hire, they're not entitled to any of royalties or film rights or anything like that. And that's just wrong. It's terrible. It's lawyerese and greed. And it's something that really, really has to be addressed. There's enough money for everybody to go around. And these guys are holding on to it like they're tight-fisted Scrooge or something. One of the aspects of work for hire, I think, is what's the word I'm looking for? Let me just check here. Some companies, let's just backtrack a second here. Some companies like DC in the 90s started offering participation agreements in characters that you would create. That's when Paul Levitz was there, and DC was trying to do the right thing. They were trying to still work within the parameters of work for hire, but they were trying to. Royalties had been instituted at this point, and which was a good step. And they were trying to give a percentage of ownership of characters that were created, so that anytime you use them, you would be compensated for it. Well, unfortunately, what's happening as these big Hollywood conglomerates are buying up these companies, Disney with Marvel, and AT&T, and eventually I think Discovery owns DC now. I can't remember. I can't keep it straight. Need a scorecard. They're starting to apply the same practices that they do in Hollywood when it comes to paying out to creators that they actually do have contracts with. So they have these accounting techniques in Hollywood so that you never show a profit. And you'll see films like Return of the Jedi, or I think it's Return of the Jedi, that still on paper has not showed a profit, because everything is predicated on net figures. And what happens is Hollywood utilizes a technique called vertical integration. And what that is that the main company, let's say it's, for example, say Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers owns the distribution company, and they own the film processing company, and all these other companies that are part of the process of getting a film out and made. But they own it. So what they do is they charge Warner Brothers exorbitant fees, but Warner Brothers will pay it because they're paying themselves. They own these companies, so the money's going back to them, but it's depleting it from the bottom line. So it shows no profit. Where is that? Here's a couple examples. Screenwriter Ed Solomon says that Sony claims Men in Black has never broken even, despite grossing $600 million against a $90 million budget. It's never broken even. Gone in 60 Seconds grossed $240 million at the box office, and the studio declared a $212 million loss, primarily through Hollywood accounting. Unbelievable. Stan Lee had a contract awarding him 10% of net profits of anything based on his characters. And the 2002 Spider-Man film made more than $800 million in revenue, but the producers claimed that it did not make any profit as defined in Lee's contract, and Lee received nothing. In 2002, he filed a lawsuit against Marvel Comics. The case was settled in January of 2005, with Marvel paying $10 million to finance past and future payments claimed by Lee. So all of this stuff is, when you start to read about all these things that they do in Hollywood, it's all stopgap measures. They're always, as this article points out, it's shut up money. Let's go over some of this. Ed Brubaker, who co-created the Winter Soldier character and whose work helped inspire a $1 billion grosser like Captain America Civil War, made waves with a widely circulated interview in which he expressed dissatisfaction with his Winter Soldier pay. I have made more on SAG residuals than I have made on creating the character, Brubaker told Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin on the Fat Man Beyond podcast, referencing his cameo in Captain America, the Winter Soldier. So he had a little cameo in Captain America Winter Soldier and had to become, I guess, to do so, he had to join SAG. And evidently he made more money for that little cameo thing than he did on the royalties for the use of his story concepts. Comic book history is full of stories of writers and artists who signed meager deals only to see their creations become icons, dating back to 1938, when Superman creators Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster signed away the character for $130. Yeah. So, you know, I can just hear people out on the internet saying, well, you know, that was the deal. You knew it going into it. You knew it was work for hire. So you're really not entitled to this stuff. Well, there's more to it than that, and we have to look back at the history of comics, and what comics and its ancillary businesses, such as distribution, really are. They are a monopoly, and they always have been. Sure, there's a bunch of different publishers. But if you go back in the day, back when it was newspaper distribution, you couldn't self-publish a book and get a newspaper deal or a periodical distribution deal so that you could get into 7-Elevens and grocery stores and the Five and Dimes and with the spinner racks and all these places where comics used to be. It was virtually impossible. In fact, Marvel Comics, who had been around since almost as long as DC, was utilizing National Periodical Publications, which was then National Comics, DC Comics, their distribution line. So in essence, throughout the 60s, Marvel was being distributed by DC Comics up until 1968, where Goodman cut a different deal with another distributor. I think it was another distributor, or they came to terms with National Periodical. I can't remember which, but that's why in 1968 you'll see you saw the expansion of the Marvel line. All those double hero books like Tales of Suspense, Tales to Astonish, became Iron Man and Captain America with their own books. The Hulk and the Submariner with their own books. The expansion of the Silver Surfer as his own book. All that stuff happened because they finally got their own distribution deal. And that's a company that's been around forever. Now, try doing that as an individual. You couldn't. It was impossible. Now we flash forward to the 80s when newspaper distribution is dying, and it's given the rise of direct sales and distributors like Diamond and Capital City and those guys. And so if you wanted to start your own company in the 80s, a lot of companies did start up. It was a little easier. Doors were starting to open there, and the smaller companies gave ownership to the creators, but Marvel and DC never did. And those windows began to close as Diamond started buying up all these different distribution outlets, so that there was only one. Marvel signed an exclusive deal with them at one point. So, like, even when I published Monster Island back in 1998, I had to go through Diamond if I wanted to get my books into stores. No, Capital City was still around, so I could use both of them, but the bulk of their sales were coming from Marvel and DC. So even if you could get into this phone book catalog, you were shoved all the way to the back. The bottom line is it wasn't a level playing field. It never was. But that's all changed. That has changed now with the ability to directly reach the fan base and for people to self-publish on their own through crowdfunding and other means, digitally, what have you. So there's a lot more opportunities now, but we're still, if for the non or for the nonce, whatever the proper phrase is there, Marvel and DC are still publishing, and people are still working for them, and they're still working under work-for-hire rules. But what's the incentive now for any creator to give them any great ideas? We've seen enough of what happens to creators that give away their work. Let's look at Jim Starlin. Jim Starlin made more money in Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice than he received for Guardians of the Galaxy and the Avengers: Infinity War. All the stuff, Thanos, Gamora, Drax, all of those characters. The major storylines that propelled all those movies were a lot of it came from Starlin stuff, and he made more from a small figure. Who was it? What character? A minor character. Does it say? It doesn't say what character it was that appeared in Batman vs. Superman. Huh, that's weird. I know that Len Wein made more on Lucius Fox appearing in the Dark Knight trilogies than he did on Wolverine, a character he created. And a lot of that is because of DC's progressive outlook on providing contracts to creators for stuff that they created, and Marvel didn't. So it took Jim Starlin to go public to kind of embarrass Marvel about it, And so they ponied up, and with an undisclosed amount of money. When a creator has created dozens of characters, it can be a full-time job trying to make sure credit is given where it's due. Former Marvel editor-in-chief Roy Thomas receives checks for his characters. If there are issues, he takes them up with Marvel employees who act as an in-between to the Disney side. Earlier this month, Thomas flagged that he wasn't being properly credited on Loki for his role in creating the Timekeepers, the mysterious beings at the center of the Disney Plus show. Thomas, who is positive about his relationship with Marvel and has long maintained satisfaction with his treatment by the company, was assured it would be fixed. On July 7th, Thomas's manager, John Cimino, skipped to the end of that week's episode and was disappointed not to see his client's name. A few days later, Cimino checked out Black Widow and was happy to confirm Thomas was thanked for his role in co-creating Red Guardian, the character played by David Harbour. Now, Starlin, who has made peace with Marvel over Thanos and speaks positively of his relationships there, has another 70s creation hitting the big screen September 3rd, Shang-Chi. He notes he hasn't heard if Disney will be giving him pay beyond the paltry sum, quote unquote, in his original deal. Says Starlin with a laugh, "Let's see what happens. You may have me squeaking." Yeah. Okay, I want to show you guys this. This is really interesting. Okay. So this is from the Atlantic, and it's talking about what I mentioned earlier, Return of the Jedi. This article is from 2011. It grossed $475 million on a $32 million budget, and it didn't turn a profit. Like any company, it calculates profits by subtracting expenses from revenues. Erase any possible profit, the studio charges this movie corporation a big fee that overshadows the film's revenue. For accounting purposes, the movie is a money loser, and there are no profits to distribute. The article goes on with this little analogy. Imagine you're running a lemonade stand with your buddy Steve. Your mom says you have to share half your profits with your sister, but you don't want to. So you pretend your buddy Steve is actually a corporation. Call him Steve Inc., charging you rent for the stand, the spoon, etc. Dang, Mom, I don't have any profits. I had to pay it all to Steve Inc., you say when you come home. But the money isn't gone. It's as good as yours. It's in your best friend's pocket. So Return of the Jedi is a $475 million lemonade stand. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Hollywood can't really work like this, you're thinking, but it does. Last year, again, this is 2011, they revealed the balance sheet for Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, which under Hollywood accounting ended up with a $167 million loss, even though it was one of the top grossing films of the last decade. Warner Brothers charged about $350 million in distribution, advertising, and interest fees to this external corporation, which is owned by them. So here's some of the numbers, what they charged for prints, advertising, publicity, total expenses here, 191 million plus, almost 192 million. And then you get to the bottom line, a Mountain Dew, zero. Imagine that. There's no money to share. And yet these guys, have multiple houses, they have planes, they're flying here, there, and everywhere. And the creators, again, get screwed. Where is that? There was I was looking for there was a story I had here before. It was had to do with Tom Hanks. I can't find it now. Well, this one's interesting here. Michael Uslan and Benjamin Melniker, they filed a breach of lawsuit in Los Angeles in 1992 and claimed that they were the victims of sinister campaign and fraud and coercion that has cheated them out of continuing involvement in the production of the 1989 film Batman and its sequels. And Uslan was a major player in getting at the film. We were denied proper credits and deprived of any financial rewards for our indispensable creative contribution to the success of Batman. Superior Court judge rejected the lawsuit. Total revenues of Batman topped $2 billion, with Uslan claiming to have not seen a penny more than that since our net profit participation has proved worthless. Warner Brothers offered the pair an out-of-court payoff, a sum described by Uslan and Melniker's attorney as 2 popcorns and 2 Cokes. Well, I get that. Because, when they used Bane in Dark Knight Rises, and the royalty check for that $1 billion film came in, we couldn't buy a used car with that money. And we We ended up having to lawyer up, and it was 4 years of constant battles of being told what a bunch of scumbags we are, and ungrateful. It was really, really ugly. It didn't end well, but it ended. And I won't go into it. But it was just a horrible, horrible thing. And here's the other thing. What does it cost them to give credit? That's what they were talking about with Roy Thomas there. Credit and remuneration. But in Dark Knight Rises, Chuck and I had no credit whatsoever for the creation of Bane. The whole movie is driven by this character. The whole plot is driven by this character. And there's no credit. Now, the caterer got credit. The dog handler got credit. The gaffers got credit. But we didn't get any credit. And we had to go fight for our money, too. So all this stuff is just it's leading to a dissatisfaction with a business that used to be a little bit more of a handshake deal, because real money is in it, and they're flaunting it and they're making it and they're not sharing it, because they're hiding behind legalisms and lawyers. Unfortunately, it's a shame, but it goes back to work for hire. If you really want to own these characters, studios, Marvel, DC, then hire these people as employees. Give them all the benefits that they deserve if you're going to own it. If not, then give them a real ownership of the concepts and the creations that you were making millions off of, billions in cases. It's the right thing to do. You will incentivize creators to come and work for you that way, because, as I mentioned earlier, there is no incentive for anybody to go work for any of these guys and give them your best ideas if they're just going to take them and spit you out to the road at some point. So, they really have two choices. If they want to continue on, the work for hire road, which I think is going to be challenged at some point. I really do. I think it's going to come up in front of the court someday, and if it's overturned, there's going to be some scrambling, because we're getting to the point now where some of these earlier Golden Age characters are going to be coming up for public domain, and these companies are going to be scrambling to figure out how they can maintain control. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes here, and people are starting to talk out about what's going on with these companies and how they're treating the people that are creating this stuff. Well, let's say a good afternoon to whoever is here this morning. I've been in the other screen, so I wasn't sure. What kind of a crowd we got here? JP Roca, Leg Kick 1, Hyper Kaiju, hello, hello. Frozen Dead, Johnny Harley, hello. George Travelos, hello. Prater 7, Man of War 665, Neighbor of the Beast, Hail Amigos. James Allen, Pop Culture Avenger, George McIntyre, Dead Drop. Let me see a usual cast of characters. Aaron Sarg, hello, hello. John Ottinger. Did you and Chuck Huckendra, did you and Chuck Dixon each get a check when Bane was used in the movies and on that Gotham TV show? Yeah, we do get royalties for when they use Bain for anything. But what becomes apparent is when you do the backwards math of, there's a small percentage pool of royalties, and that pool is split by the creators. Everything else goes to DC Comics. So even if it's a halfway decent check, the bulk of it was multiplied, 95 times more over to them. Old Dirty Fatty says never take money in the back end, only up front from the gross. Well, yeah, that's nice, but in the real world, that's hard to do. It's hard to get because they know. And a lot of artists writers aren't good businessmen either. They're excited to have their ideas brought forward and all that kind of stuff, and they make bad decisions. Stat Zero is here, says same stuff with syndicates would do for most comic strip artists, especially the smaller ones. Well, the only difference though with the syndicates is it's a 50-50 split. So everything that comes in on a successful strip is split 50-50 with the creator and the syndicate. And then if it's particularly successful for a long period of time, I know that Mort Walker and Charles Schultz had renegotiated their contracts so that it wasn't a 50-50 split, that they got a larger percentage. How about Wolfman and Colin's suit for the Blade movie? Well, that didn't turn out too well for Marv. Some people, I think, that he was hoping to testify for him did not come forward. As Chuck and I learned, these corporations, their lawyers are on staff. So they're getting paid whether they're filing, paper clips or they're going after creators. So there's no skin off their nose to delay, and to not settle, because their lawyers are getting paid their salaries anyway, whereas anybody else is hiring them and they're either taking a percentage cut or they're getting an hourly wage, which is through the roof, and it'll just bleed you dry. They'll just go on and bleed you. I think Starlin, did it right. He got it out there into the public at the time that those movies were really hitting hot. And people were seeing the numbers and they're like, what? He's only making how much from that? So, I think shaming is about the only way you can get to these people sometimes. Shadowhawk is here. Hello, Shadowhawk. Would love to hear Graham discuss this subject with Shane Davis, a volatile subject. Well, I'd be happy to talk with Shane about it. Oh, thank you, Shadowhawk, for putting my Alien Alamo up there. Appreciate it. My bro, Aaron Lepresti. Graham tells it like it is. Thank you, Aaron. Aaron's got a Indiegogo campaign starting up, so get on his sign-up list. Sheldon Martin, the budget and the final costs are different? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So they should negotiate for a percentage of box office receipts instead of a percent of profit. Maybe so. I mean, really, you should just be getting it off the gross, if that's possible. I don't know that it is. Johnny Rando says Starlin was happy with some new Thanos original graphic novels until Donny Cates ripped off one of Starlin's endings and Marvel sided with Donny. Oh, I hadn't heard that story. Credit equals money as far as they're concerned, like them giving credit is an admission of guilt. Yeah, I don't know if it was just, me and Chuck, if that's just a paranoid response, because we have gotten credit in when they used Bane, like in, I think it was a Justice League cartoon or something like that. We had credit, but we've never had credit in a live action version, whether it was Batman and Robin, in which Bane was used, or The Dark Knight Rises. They've never given us credit for that. I'm at a loss to figure out why. Because as I said, everybody else gets credit. Sounds like DC were the ungrateful ones. You and Chuck created an iconic character and they can't even pay you respect. Well, that is the truth. The mainstream's disgusting tactics will just bring more great creators to CG. Hail, hail. Give him hell, Graham. I'm giving him hell, Hyper Kaiju. Mr. K is here. Hello, Mr. K. Andrew Taz, hail chat. Graham's going to get paid when Sam Elliott options Alien Alamo. Yeah, if any of you guys know Sam Elliott, make sure he knows where this campaign is. We want him to find out about this because this will be a killer movie for him. It's like my dad always says, if you don't like what they're paying you, ask for a raise or quit. You're going to get treated as badly as you let yourself be treated. Or you stay in the fight and you make the changes. There's that option too, Sousa Bird. Instead of leaving it for others to pick up, you stay in the fight and you make changes happen. I am fighting and I'm trying to make changes. I'm conducting my own company the way that I think that the others should. Where people that are going to be doing stuff for me will own their copyrights outright. I think James means to say creatives are not really savvy when it comes to business. Two completely different spheres of knowledge and ability. Yeah. I think that's what you meant to type. Hello, John. Yeah. He fixed it. Corporate comics have always been carny and grift. One thing I respect Neil Adams for exposing. Well, here's the thing. Companies are only as good or bad as the people that are there, that are working. When I was at DC in the 90s, in the early 90s, in the late 80s, actually I started there in the early 80s, 1983, 84. When Jeanette Kahn was the publisher, Dick Giordano was like the editor-in-chief. Paul Levitz was, I don't know, chief creative officer. I can't remember what their titles were, but those three people were at the top of the chain, and they were good people. You know, they understood what freelancers do and did. Now, did they try to change work for hire? No, but they did try to work within the parameters of that and offer better things for the talent that was working for them. And I have to give them credit for that. Paul and Dick both, I'm not sure about Jeanette's background, but Paul and Dick certainly came up through the ranks, you know, through the old systems of freelancing, and they knew what it was like with no royalties, and low page rates. And guess what? Here we are in 2021, and it's almost the same thing. Page rates have dropped from the big companies. They don't sell enough, most of these comics, to make royalties. It used to be the number was 75,000 was the cutoff for a royalty at DC Comics, but their books were selling, you know, 150 to 200, and in certain instances, you know, 900 to 1 million copies. Particularly like books like Death of Superman and Batman 497 and Tech 664. Those key books during Nightfall and Death of Superman, huge numbers. So 75,000 cutoff, you know, okay. Well, they had to lower that royalty. I think now it's 40,000. And there's still barely any royalties coming out because the books just aren't selling that much. There's only a few that are selling a couple 100,000, you know. Gross sales on the front end is the deal Eddie Murphy gets on most of his projects. Well, good on Eddie. Hey, Keaton Smith. Hail, Graham, can't wait for Alien Alamo. Well, thank you for backing it, my friend. How would you protect your IPs going forward, Graham? Should you option them to another medium? What would you do to secure your share? Well, it would be contractually mine, 100%. They would be optioning the rights to utilize them in whatever media form that they're doing. But I would own them, and they would have to pay me those great percentages like movie companies pay, you know, DC and Marvel Comics for the rights of their characters. But it would all go to me because I own them outright. You're feeding the fuel for one of Shane's epic rants that would instantly become legendary. Well, think of this as a tag team match, you know. You know, Shane's on the ropes and he's going to jump down and slap my hand, you know, and take over. Forgot to wonder how much they pay in legal fees versus how much it would cost to pay you. They pay nothing in legal fees because the lawyers are on staff. You know, they work for the company. So it's not like me incurring lawyer fees to go after somebody. Yeah. So, you know, it's no skin off their nose. You know, that's why they're on staff to constantly defend and argue and fight and delay and do all that stuff to keep, you know, keep you from having to write a check to you. Does my work with the Expendables count as work for hire, and can you talk about it? Yes, that is a work for hire. The Expendables and all the characters, and I believe all the likenesses of the characters, i.e. the actors' licenses, are all owned by Sylvester Stallone. So, yeah, that's a work for hire gig. Now, I knew that going in. I'm not creating anything new. I'm working with actors' faces on that. It paid well, you know. There was a bonus in it. So that was a good gig, you know. I got what I expected. They got what they expected, and everybody was happy. It's not like, you know, Stallone came and said, "Hey, you know, I want to do this thing called, you know, Miracle Boy or something, you know, and you got to create this character and do all this stuff." And the Miracle Boy, you know, gets optioned by Stallone to make this movie, and it makes it, you know, $80 billion and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't like that. Some people are not in a position to leave. Some people also love what they do and want to make their industry better. They don't like it, then leave it mentality does not fit every situation. Right. That's what I was saying earlier. Sometimes you got to stay and fight for the changes, you know, or show a different way, you know. There was a time, you know, like let's look at Jack Kirby, for example. You know, he was unhappy for a long time at Marvel, and he had mouths to feed, and his wife, you know, had some breathing issues, and so they moved to California, and he was just unhappy with what he was doing and the credit he was getting, but he only had one other place to go if you wanted to pull down a decent paycheck or a page rate, and that was DC Comics. You know, that goes back to that whole monopoly system, you know. Yeah, I guess he could have worked for Charlton the way that Steve Ditko did, but, you know, they didn't pay anything, you know. And, you know, Kirby deserved to own a piece of his characters. Jeanette Kahn in the 80s. I heard there were no women in comics until 2016. Wink, wink. Actually, Jeanette was there in the 70s. I think she took over in 77, 78, something like that. I think she came from magazine publishing. Do you think corporations like Disney and AT&T have gotten too big? Could they now be in breach of competition laws? They seem to own everything in entertainment and are only growing. Well, you know, that's so true with big tech too. You know, it's like these gigantic monopolies, you know, they're gobbled up and they're all owned. When you keep going up the ladder, they're all owned by this one big thing. It's scary, you know, that they're being controlled that way. Predator 7 says, was just listening to Perch and Sean Gordon Murphy's latest video right before this, talking about similar things. They were emphasizing the importance of getting a good lawyer for things like this. Well, yeah, you do need good representation. The people you're going up against are going to have it, so you're going to need it too. M. Night Shyamalan presents Graham Nolan's The Canoe. Cha-ching! Tack loves art. I got the entire run of Power of the Atom. Well, okay. Not my finest hour, but I thank you for getting that. Mayfield Jukes Expendables Go to Hell is going to be lit. It is. I know what it looks like. It's going to be freaking amazing when people get it. Yes. James Dean Anderson. Hi, James. The Marvel DC duopoly is now losing their grip on comics. Congrats on your new book's crowdfunding sales. Thank you. Yeah, I'm very pleased at how Alien Alamo is doing. I'm only $2,000 away from meeting what the Shinu made. My hope is to build it and have it go further before, maybe even get to six figures before the campaign officially closes and I begin fulfillment of it, which is hopefully going to be December. James Allen did Mark Trail for 10 years for King Feature Syndicate, got monthly check. Now they'll sell it in their archive forever, and I see nothing. Yeah. James, you need to look. There's a organization called I think it's the Authors Coalition. And they gather, because the royalty laws are different in other countries. Here, the royalty laws really benefit the corporations. In many other countries, the royalties benefit the artists themselves. And regardless of what the laws are here, the syndicates like King Features have to pay the money into, let's say it's Australia's fund, or Sweden's fund, or whatever that country is. So there's money sitting there. And the Authors Coalition keeps track of that, and you can go on there and check and see if your name is there, and see if there's royalties due to you. And all you have to do, if there is you fill out a form, and they'll cut you the check. They'll tell you how much is owed to you based on overseas sales. So you might want to check on that and see if you have any outstanding royalties from other countries for the reproduction or use of Mark Trail over there. James Murphy, so glad of your success with Alien Alamo and the Shinu. What's the next one called again, and when can we expect it? Compass Comics are a great addition to my library. Well, thank you, James. That's so encouraging as we're talking about this Debbie Downer subject. But I don't want anybody here to get the idea that I'm down on comics. I'm just down on corporate comics and what they have become. I'm very proud and very happy of what I'm doing with Compass Comics and the books I'm personally doing myself. I have another book that's going to come out that I'm publishing, and I'll be writing a story or two in it, but other artists and writers are going to be participating in it. And it'll be a collection called Giant Size Two-Fisted Manly Tales. It's a celebration of male, toxic masculinity, if you will. And there's no soy there at all. So this is, balls to the wall, two-fisted action tales that I think a lot of people have really been looking forward to, this kind of celebration. So that's going to be the next book. I'm hoping to launch a campaign for that within the next month or so, once I get a few elements together. I have all the writers. The writers are a who's who of action writing. Chuck Dixon, Mike Barron, Bo Smith, Kevin Grievous, and myself will all be writing stories for this thing. Butch Geist is working on a story, and I've got on the art on a story, and I'm looking to shore up the rest of them shortly. But it's going to be a really fun campaign with some really neat stuff. that I think everybody's really, really going to enjoy. And then as that's going on, and I'm finishing fulfillment on Alien Alamo, because don't think that that's going to go on without, and it's going to slow down Alien Alamo. It's two separate things that'll be going on in conjunction with one another. And once Alien Alamo is fulfilled, then I'll be starting the next book in my Compass Monster trilogy, so to speak, which is The Ghost of Metacumba Key. Graham, what has been more fun and what has been more challenging to draw so far, the Chenoo or Alien Alamo? Well, Keaton, there's challenges in every story that you do. The fun thing about doing the Chenoo for me was all the snow effects, because I had this really cool snow brush that I could use on my iPad. So it really, really made the snow effects look really cool, and I really enjoyed doing that. I love drawing Alien Alamo because this is a cartoony style, because it takes place in 1957, and I wanted to give it more of that look, even though the action and some of the stuff is going to be gross and, sci-fi-ish and fun. So there's always challenges in every story that you do. There's stuff you like to draw, stuff you don't like to do. Like when I have to do crowds and crowds of aliens because they're these like insect things, thousands of them, that gets a little hard sometimes, but that's one of the advantages of doing the type of storytelling that I'm doing these days, which is not sequels. So I don't have to worry about having to draw these millions of aliens again after the story, or any of the sets or the locations or any of that kind of stuff. Each book that I do in succession will have a different feel to it, a different look, and a different environment. So it keeps me fresh and excited about every single one, so that page 1 and page 56 all look great. There's no slowdown because you get tired of drawing the same stuff. Trying to remember if you did any work for CrossGen. Was it following the work-for-hire model that DC and Marvel follow? Was it trying to break out of that model? I did not do anything for CrossGen. They had quartered me about coming down, and it was more towards the end of the company, and I wasn't. I was getting some vibes that I didn't think it was a good move, so I didn't. And they did have a cool model that they were trying to utilize. It was almost like the imaginary model of the Marvel bullpen, which never really existed, of artists and writers all in the same location working with each other and putting out these books. But they were freelancers back then. But Stan created that image, and I thought it was really great. They all had health care. They had working hours, they had X amount of pages they had to do per day. I think it was 1, maybe 2. I think it was 1. No, that way they wanted the artwork never to be rush looking and always to look, each page look the best it can. And I thought they did great stuff. I don't know if it was the market at the time or if it was the content that they were publishing. I'm really not sure. Or whether Alessi just overextended himself. That happens a lot. I have to, ask Chuck that on his show. Ask Chuck Dixon, because he has the inside skinny on that. High tea. Is there any other kind? David, I have never done any work for Image, so I really don't know. Yeah, the first part is a bit of a downer. Go ahead. Sometimes a little tough love needs to go out there, because when you expose the shit, you can make changes. When you shine a light in the darkness, which these guys have been scurrying under for a long time, good things can happen. And good things have been happening. People are breaking out on their own. They're coming up with their own concepts. They're owning it. Crowdfunding is a game changer. I've never been happier in my 38-year career than I am right now producing the stuff that I'm doing. I wake up excited every single day. And when another idea hits me, no matter how crazy that idea may sound, when you verbalize it, it's never off the table. It's like, you know what? That could be really cool. That could be really cool. And then you develop it and you own it outright. And it's encouraging. It's a wonderful feeling. It's creatively stimulating. I spent a lot of years, as James Allen did, working at King Feature Syndicate, and that work is soul sucking. There's absolutely no appreciation. It's all paycheck work, and there's no support or anything. It was as I said, soul sucking. It just would eat you up. I was miserable. But I was making a buck. And I had children and mouths to feed and all that, like Jack did. But you work hard, you save, you put stuff away, you make plans, you execute those plans, and you hopefully you'll do it right and things will be successful. And so far, so good. Is the resolution to Alien Alamo a big crab boil? Oh, spoiler alert. I'll just say this, Green Laser. Bring the butter. Leg Kick 1, thank you for answering my question, Graham. You're welcome. Well, since this is my show, James, nothing is off topic. You guys can ask anything you like. We covered the initial stuff here. We can always jump back to it if people have questions about that. But if you got other questions about things, we can deal with that too. Completely off topic question, but do you prefer digital drawing over traditional? And did you find the transition difficult? I found it that I was hesitant to switch over because I was afraid of the learning curve. I started off doing my Sunshine State strip digitally as a way to dip my toe in the water because I felt that the demands weren't as great on that because it was a humor strip, and I wanted to see how that worked. The first serious book that I ever did entirely digitally, was The Expendables Go to Hell. And the reason I made that choice then and there to jump in is because of the extensive amount of reference that was needed for that. I just felt like it was going to be, it was a ball buster as it was to do that book. But if I didn't do it digitally, it would have really been crazy hard. My name's not Russ Heath, so Russ could have done it. But so that's where I made the change, and I got used to it, and I liked it. I liked a lot of things about it, and like when I did Bane Conquest, I did that was a sort of a hybrid. I did the drawings and the penciling digitally, and then I would transfer it and print it out in blue line on a traditional board, and then ink it traditionally so that I had original artwork for it. But now I've transitioned to doing like the Chenoo and Alien Alamo are done entirely on my iPad Pro. How long does outlining your stories take? Do you mean doing layouts for the stories? Because once I have the plot, then you have to do the visual layouts of the panels and the pages. To me, that's the most laborious part. That's where all the heavy lifting gets done, all the thinking. Even though the drawings aren't tight and sharp, and I'll show you something here. Here's an example of what I do. I make a template and I print. Let me take that off. Hold on. Okay. make a template and I print it off. And on one side, I do the layout of the storytelling that I want to do. And then on the other side, I put all my notes for dialogue, captions, sound effects, all that kind of stuff. And all the stuff is editable. The drawings are in there, and I will manipulate the dialogue and stuff sort of as the process goes on. I'll think of better ideas or ways to express that dialogue, or to add something to it, to foreshadow something, or to add a bit of a character bit into it, all those little things. The notes that I put down there are pretty much just for me to know what needs to be said, what the basic gist of the conversations or captions are going to be. Would you be able to talk about the differences between the American model of paying creators compared to how Japanese and European creators are paid? Seems like they can find financial success. Well, I don't know how European and Japanese creators are paid. I'd be interested to find out, because I've always wondered about that. Like, they'll sit down and take a year to do a textbook, not text, but the Western text. It'll take them a year, 6 months, a year to do one of those things. So I always wonder how they can do that. No, Johnny, I will not be offering copies of the Shinu for sale at Terrificon. They're only available at the Compass Comics website or on the Alien Alamo campaign page. It's the only place you can get the Shinu now, because I have X amount of copies left, and I need to make sure that those people that are pledging on Alien Alamo for the 2 books get theirs. So entirely on your iPad Pro through Procreate? Yes, that's exactly right. What monster movies have you used as reference for scenes or general feel for your horror books? The Shinu had such an authentic yet familiar feel to it. Such a great book. Well, thank you, James. So much of that stuff is just inculcated into me because it was my first love, was monster movies. So, I've got imagery in my mental library that I pull out if I'm thinking about a specific scene, that kind of thing. So there's no reference per se that I can think of that I call upon. I think I more internalize it and bring it out from stuff I've seen and absorbed throughout my life. Now here's a real question. How do you do the panel borders on Procreate? I don't. I just went through this. I was talking to Dan Frege about it, and he was talking about using a brush for it and everything else. So how do you get the ends so sharp and crisp? And we haven't been able to figure out a way to do it. So one of the limitations with Procreate is that the DPI level is 300, and print level is 600. So what I do is I import the Photoshop file from Procreate into Photoshop, and then I drop that into a pre-established template, a printing template for the actual comic book size. And that template is already set for 600 DPI. So when I drop that in, the 300 one, it's smaller, and then I blow it up. I pull it up. I pull it to it's the right size, and there's not a loss of resolution because the 600 is kind of like up converting, if you will. And then as far as the borders go, I'll put the borders on a layer, and I'll do a select, a square select, and stroke it. And then my borders are super sharp. And then I just clean up the edges of anything that's overlapping the borders, or fix anything that's, under inked on the inside of the border. So then my borders are super sharp. Hello, Zaid Comics. Good to see you here. Okay. Okay. Well, that's the end of the questions here. I think I covered everybody. I hope you enjoyed this broadcast. I hope it was somewhat interesting, and at the very least informative about what's going on in this business, and what creators are having to deal with too. Did I talk about this? Yeah, I talked about vertical integration. Hollywood accounting. Yep, I covered that. Yeah, here's another thing that they do too, is that when they have a dog, a movie that tanks, they take profits out of one and put it into the other, so that they both show no profit. 21st Century Fox was found guilty of using Hollywood accounting practice to defraud the producers and stars of the procedural drama Bones in order to pay $179 million in missing profits, with the ruling made public. Wow. Look at this one. Don Johnson won a lawsuit against Reicher Entertainment, which had attempted to wipe profits for the show Nash Bridges. That was a successful show that he was in for a while. To wipe profits off of Nash Bridges books in order to reduce Johnson's 50% back-end stake to zero. The jury awarded Johnson $23.2 million in damages. Damn. What sucks about this is, you got to lawyer up. You got to go after him. You got to go get him. That's the part that is so exhausting. That you actually have to do it. But I'm a pit bull, so I have to do that. Oh, a couple people popped in here. Let's see. Pop culture adventure. Graham, you mentioned a Chenu type figure. Any more info on that? Yeah, I'm tabling that. The cost. I was going to do a Chenu plush, but I didn't want it to just sit there, like a teddy bear. I wanted it to be able to stand and have his arms out and stuff like that. And to do that was adding customizable things that had to go to it, and the cost was getting prohibitive, particularly when I have publishing assets that I want to put into the giant size two-fisted manly tails. I don't want to cut myself short, because I'm hiring artists and writers now, and I want to pay them a decent rate and a bonus if it does well. And I want this book to, eventually rise up and become a hardcover and 100 pages and all that kind of fun stuff. So I tabled that idea for now, because I don't want to overextend with something that could be a problematic sale. Donald DeLay, tell me your secret. What secret? I'm an open book. Ooh, what's this? I have the new iPad Pro. You can set the DPI to 600. But can you set it in Procreate? I mean, because the iPad Pro, the DPI on there is thousands. It's a high definition screen. But can you set the DPI in Procreate to 600? That's the question. Priority7 says, thanks for streaming, Graham. Valuable topic. You're welcome. Do you ever make it out to the Phoenix, Arizona Comic Convention? I have never been to Phoenix, Arizona, but I would love to go to. I would indeed. Oh, Literature Devil. Thank you, sir, for the $2 super chat. What if sequels were banned for a time? Well, they're banned at Compass Comics because I'm not planning on doing any sequels. I'll do spin-offs, but I'm not doing any sequels. Are you talking about movies? I'm assuming. Hyperkaiju, draining. Yeah, that's the word. It's draining. When we were going through that with Warner Brothers, that's when I took up fishing because I was just so overstressed about everything and being called, greedy scumbag and all that kind of stuff, and not getting anywhere with these guys. It took a toll. I had a full head of hair before that. I joke. I shaved that off, but I joke. But yeah, it's very stressful having to deal with these dirt balls. A couple new folks. Frackle Felger Carb. I know that phrase from Battlestar Galactica. Hail to you, sir. I'm sorry to hear this, Eric. Yeah, but I was at it for 4 years too. It is draining. Antonio says, yes, it is Procreate. What version of iPad do you have? Mine's about a year old, 2 years old. I thought I looked to see if I could do it and if it would do 600 DPI. Shadowhawk says, do I ever plan to revisit Joe Frankenstein? Yes. The answer is a hard yes to that. I just gathered all the color files from Greg Wright because IDW had published it with the lettering and their trade dress and all that kind of stuff, but all the rights reverted to Chuck and me. So I've got all the color files, but I have to put it together. I'm going to have to get it relettered and a new design put on it. But I do have plans to re-release Joe Frankenstein and then to do a new story for him to go along with it. All right. Well, I'm going to have to check my iPad, see if mine is new enough. I can't remember if it's a year or 2 years old. They change them constantly, so I'll double check and see if I can't do that. But that would be great if I could do the 600 DPI. See, brand new one. That's probably it. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that, but it's no big deal. Like as I said, when this one starts to crap the bed, I'll get the newest one and then I'll be set for 600 DPI. So it's really not a big deal. Color files are usually 300 DPI. So I blow it up to 600 for black and white. I send it to the colorist. And that's the actual print size too. So yeah, it works out great because the Chenu is done that way and, they look fantastic. Nick Rose heard a terrible rumor that I can beat up 70 male feminists with one finger. Well, I'll need 5. I'll need 5, but thank you for that. Daniel Russell has bought me a beer. I thank you for that, sir. That will not go undrunk, that's for sure. I really do appreciate that. I appreciate all you guys coming in here and listening to me prattle on. Can't do this stuff without you. No, definitely not. You guys are all loyal backers. I think most of you guys whose names I recognize here have backed my projects. So I think that's fantastic. If you haven't and you're new to the station, please subscribe to my YouTube channel so you'll get updates when I do these shows. It's free. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe. And back Alien Alamo. The link is in the description. You know, hit the link. It'll take you to the site. You can take a look at pages and stuff. More color pages are going to be coming next week because Greg finally finished the last issue of Girls of Dimension 13, which was my series for Aftershock Comics that Brett Blevins drew. And so Greg is now full-time on Alien Alamo, and there's some killer pages coming up. I can't wait to have color added to the gray tones that I've put on. And also I'll be sharing that with backers. So you want to become a backer so you get the first look at that stuff. I heard that Chuck Norris was afraid of Graham Nolan. Somebody said, who was it? I think it was Andy Smith, that people were doing like Chuck Norris jokes, like, but with me on his show or something like that. I thought that was hysterical. Hyperkaiju says, I think I'm going to have myself a beer. Ooh, what's this? Adobe Fresco allows you to ink in vector on one layer and paint in raster on another. I do one panel at a time and bring it in to approximately 600 dpi. Wonder if that's more laborious to do it that way. Oh, there we go. Just poured himself a little Bullet Rye. I just bought a big old bottle of Woodford Kentucky bourbon, which I'm going to go upstairs in a couple of minutes and tap into that. Love the Professionals. After watching the show before last, I picked up the complete Frank Frazetta Johnny Comet strip. Oh, cool. It's neat to see that stuff, especially in black and white. I heard Andy Smith said that. Next time I see him in someone else's chat, I'm going to say something. Do it. Let him have it. Let's turn this viral. Here we go. Nick Rose says, I heard Chuck Norris copied Graham's workout routine. Oh, shit. This could be fun. James likes the Professional show. Excellent. We have a lot of fun on that show. All of us are, pals. And we just have a great banter back and forth. Aaron's quiz shows are a ball. Those are a lot of fun. I've got a really cool show for when it rotates over to my channel next time. I think that's in a couple of weeks, but I've got a neat idea for that show. So, will you be doing a story for Cool Story Bro? No. I think that's a backup story in one of Ethan's books. He had asked me to do a story in that, but I couldn't. I just didn't have the time. I'm too busy doing this. And in fact, I asked him to do a story in Giant Size Two-Fisted Manly Tales, and he couldn't do it either because of what he's doing. That's the thing. We're both doing successful comics of our own. That's a good one. That's a good one. I really like that. David, how you doing, man? You should be doing a story in Giant Size Two-Fisted Manly Tales. I'm just calling you out on that. I asked David to do a story in there, but he's too busy. Another guy that's too busy that I wanted to do in there, to get in there. Got to wear sunglasses while watching. Wait a minute. Is that a ball joke? I think that's a ball joke. Damn. Alrighty, fellas. That Woodford's not going to pour itself. So I'm going to say good day. I shall see all of you, well, certainly Wednesday for... I'm going to have Andy Smith on the Storytellers, because Andy has launched his new project, and I want to give him a platform to talk about it. And so he'll be my guest on the Storytellers on Wednesday at 8 o'clock. So please come back, and back Alien Alamo and back all these great CG books. And thanks again for coming in, guys, and spending your Saturday with me. Have a great rest of the weekend, and you have my permission to go out and get yourself a bourbon too. All right? We'll see you.